So, how big of a moment has to exist for a day to be the best day? Like, how heavy of a hello has to happen to where it lasts for a moment, then a minute, then an hour, then the whole day? How long of a hug has to happen before it's the most important hug you've had all week? Your best day ever is going to come and go, and you're not going to know for a long, long time. It's going to happen, and you're going to enjoy every part of it. And then you're going to forget. And it's going to come back. And you're going to forget again, and it's going to come back again. I had a best friend in high school who was as awkward as I am. I met him when he was wearing a wrinkly shirt that said brand new on it. And I said, hey, that shirt is pretty old. And he went, no, man, it's brand new. And we were fast friends ever since. He was awkward, I was awkward. We were in that stage where like girls wouldn't talk to us. He had no problem moonwalking or singing in the cafeteria, and I had no problem doing the same. After high school, we discovered alcohol because we weren't invited to the parties where they had that at an early age. And we became friends all over again, drinking Four Locos underneath the I-4 underpass, which is not something that I would recommend. I don't think you should be able to buy alcohol if you're paying for it in nickels. Really, that's the main thing. But that's what we did. We drank and we took our awkward asses out to iBar to twirl each other until girls talk to us. And you know, I'm proud to say how well that worked. I remember the day where girls started liking the frail, tiny boy with the swooshy hair, because that was the day that, you know, he finally went home with a girl instead of me. I remember how often that happened after that, because he was just, you know, a bright smile. And he was more than that. He was someone you could talk to and connect with. There are a lot of people in here who have a family member who says they argue to argue, you communicate by arguing. And that's because those people are awful. Your relatives are awful. And he argued to be wrong, which was a beautiful thing. He didn't argue so you'd believe him. He'd argue so he'd figure out what he'd been missing. He got a girlfriend that went to UNF far away, and it was, you know, the first girl that wouldn't say no, and he finally got his first girlfriend. The thing is, girls started getting interested in him pretty quickly, and he didn't know how to say no yet because we never developed that skill during high school. And so when a girl offered to dance with him and kiss him at back booth, he said yes. And me as the best friend, it was not my place to call his girlfriend or say anything. It was just my place to make sure he got home safe. He started dating that girl also, which is not something that I'm sure he's proud of. And she was, she was bad news, to put it short. She had a very dangerous, adventurous side that I didn't understand. John and I would drive downtown and drink when we parked, which is illegal, but it's what we did, and we weren't hurting anyone. I remember I was stuck in St. Augustine after a show, and she offered to pick me up, and she opened a 4-pack as she got me as we were heading to Orlando. And I thought, this is serious business, all right. I don't know if I want to be in the car with you pounding these, but I have no other way home. She also had what I like to call a resting bitch personality. The only time I ever met her and she wasn't a bitch to me was while she was resting. That's like the only moment I had any fun with her. Now, times are different, technology exists. Friends you might know exist at the top right corner of Facebook. And one day, Sarah Mannix, his girlfriend, was on Facebook and saw a picture of a girl kissing her boyfriend. And it broke her heart. And she called me, and I had the responsibility of telling her, yeah, I'm sorry, I knew, and it wasn't my place to say anything. I told him I never wanted him to do that. I know you're far away at school. And I told him to pick you. And we talked for an hour after that. When Lyric, his other girlfriend, called me, she blamed me. And she said, how dare you? I drove you home from St. Augustine. How can you support him after this? And I know what she was doing. She was making me the bad guy just so she could stay with him. And I let it happen. And as you can guess, pretty soon, I wasn't allowed to talk to John anymore because I was a bad influence. I was allowed to talk to Sarah, though. And that 1-hour conversation was too enticing, and I called her again. the next day. And I told her I was sorry. And that conversation was 2 hours. The conversation we had next was only a couple minutes. But I'd like to think it was 4.5 hours, because UNF is in Jacksonville. And I stole my dad's scooter and drove all the way there, going 55 miles an hour on a tiny Japanese scooter with rocks hitting my face, because I had to try this mellow mushroom that she told me about that was on campus. When I got there, we ate, we split the bill, and she told me it was awkward. So I drove home. We dated for a long time after that, and one night on our routine Uber and drinks downtown, I ran into John with Lyric and his best friend, and we danced. And I said, man, I love you. I'm so sorry that all this happened. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could be your friend again. I fell in love with Sarah, and that's how it happened, but I'm glad that you're with it. And he said, I miss you too. And things have been hard, but I'm glad this is happening. And we said goodbye. You can't be there for everyone. And there are heavy hellos, but there are heavy goodbyes. He killed himself 6 months later, and I couldn't say goodbye or fix any of that. But dancing fresh off of Four Loko and saying that I loved him was the best day of my life.